Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into an expert report looking at potential radiological risks, specifically for Azerbaijan.
Right, risks coming out of that whole Iran, Israel, USA situation, particularly that really tense period, June 21st, 22nd, 2025.
Exactly. Our mission really is to pull out the key takeaways for you, help you sort of navigate this complex picture, maybe challenge some common ideas about nuclear threats. Let's dive in.
Okay, so the first thing that jumps out from the report is a really crucial difference. It depends heavily on what kind of Iranian nuclear facility we're talking about.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, because those recent U.S. and Israeli strikes, the ones around that June period, they mainly hit Iran's enrichment and conversion sites. You know, places like Natanz, Fordo, Isfahan.
Right, the enrichment facilities. And the report found something, well, maybe a bit unexpected about those. What was the primary danger there?
Well, you might immediately think radiation, right? The report actually stresses that for those specific sites, the main hazard was chemical.
Chemical.
Yeah.
How so?
It's down to a substance called uranium hexafluoride UF6. If that gets released and reacts with moisture in the air, it can form hydrofluoric acid, which is nasty stuff.
Okay, so very different from a meltdown scenario.
Exactly. And importantly, monitoring agencies, the RAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, and others in the region, they reported no abnormal radiation levels outside the immediate blast zones around June 21-22. So the risk from those strikes was described as, quote, more chemical than radiological, but still real.
That distinction feels really important, but okay, then the report pivots. It talks about a much, much bigger potential threat, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. While that chemical risk is, relatively localized to those enrichment sites, the biggest potential radiological threat to the whole region, and this includes Azerbaijan, that comes from the Bushehr nuclear power plant.
Sure, that's the operational one, right? Not enrichment.
Precisely. It's Iran's only commercial nuclear power reactor currently running. And the IAEA Director General himself has warned repeatedly that a direct hit on it, or even just cutting off its power supply badly, could potentially lead to a reactor core melt. The report doesn't mince words. It calls it a potential Chernobyl-level disaster in waiting.
Wow. Chernobyl level.
Yeah. I mean, Bushehr has thousands of kilograms of nuclear material. A major release could impact areas hundreds of kilometers away. Think massive evacuations, long-term restrictions on food.
Completely different scale of disaster.
Yeah, totally different scale. Now, thankfully, just before that intense period, around June 20th, the plant was reported as operating normally and seemed under control.
Okay, that's crucial context. So with that massive potential risk sitting there, how exposed is Azerbaijan specifically? Geographically, Bushehr is quite far south in Iran, isn't it?
It is. It's in southern Iran.
Yeah.
And yet, typically prevailing winds might tend to blow plumes away from the South Caucasus region. But the report does discuss the complexities. Regional weather is tricky. It points out that under certain specific meteorological conditions, like strong winds coming up from Mesopotamia in the southeast, or these southerly winds known locally in Azerbaijan as Gilavar winds.
Gilavar, okay.
Under those conditions, it's theoretically possible for radioactive materials from Bushehr to be transported towards Azerbaijan.
So not the most likely scenario, but a possibility they have to plan for.
Exactly. Low probability, but very high impact if it did happen. So it has to be part of the risk assessment.
Which brings us to preparedness. What does the report say about how ready Azerbaijan is for something like this?
Well, it suggests Azerbaijan has a pretty robust system. They've got their Ministry of Emergency Situations, the MES, and also a specific state agency focused on nuclear and radiological activity regulation. These agencies run continuous radiation monitoring systems across the country. And, importantly, their reports from June 22nd, 2025 stated no danger to Azerbaijan in terms of radiation.
That's reassuring.
It is. Plus, Azerbaijan works closely with the IAEA internationally, and they're also a partner in an EU initiative, the CBRN Centers of Excellence. That's chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear. It shows they're engaged and likely drawing on lessons from, well, their own past experiences with the fallout from Chernobyl.
Right, they have historical context for this. So just to wrap up the main point for you listening, there's this really critical split, isn't there, between the immediate sort of localized chemical risks if enrichment sites are hit, and this much larger potential high consequence radiological threat from an active power plant like Boucher, even if the probability is lower.
Precisely. And I think this deep dive really highlights something vital. Understanding these threats isn't just a blanket nuclear danger.
Yeah.
You absolutely have to know what kind of facility, what kind of material, what kind of risk chemical radiological enrichment power plant. It changes the entire calculus.
It really does.
So maybe the thought to leave you with is this. How does getting this kind of nuanced picture, understanding the different types of risk and the preparedness measures nations like Azerbaijan have, how does that empower you to better grasp these complex global security challenges, especially when you're dealing with these, low probability but potentially devastating scenarios?